Good evening and welcome to the Design Review Board meeting of May 11th, 2023. The DRB meeting is now called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current DRB agendas and staff reports are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online and on the Planning Division's website. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB appeal is available from staff. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. Roll call. Board Member Lockruff is absent. Board Member Kasanian is not here at the moment. He'll be coming in a little later. Chair Chagayan.
Present.
Board Member Welch.
Present.
Board Member Simonian.
Present.
Reports regarding posting of agenda. The agenda for the May 11th, 2023 regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on the city's website on May 4th, 2023, and on the bulletin board outside City Hall on May 8th, 2023. Do I have approval of the Design Review Board minutes from March 9th, 2023?
Yeah, I move to accept the minutes.
Apologies. There are two sets of minutes for this evening. One is from March the 9th, and board members Lockruff, Kaskanian, and Welch were present. Simply because we don't have board member Lockruff or Kaskanian with us, we will not be able to approve the minutes for March the 9th. But we are able to approve the meeting minutes for March the 23rd.
Okay, so I move to adopt those minutes.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Board Member Welch.
Yes.
Board Member Simonian.
Yes.
Chairperson Chagayan.
Yes.
We'll move the motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd, 2023.
And if there is the possibility, if board member Kaskanian joins us, of approving the meeting minutes at the end of the meeting for March the 9th, since there would still be a majority, 2 out of 3.
Oh, 2 out of 4 at that point.
For the meeting minutes of March the 9th, there was board members Lockruff,
Only 3 were
Kaskanian, and Welch.
present.
So
Got
you'd be
it.
able to have a board member Kaskanian and Welch approve the minutes.
Great, okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Next is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Design Review Board may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. Is anyone here present for oral communications? Don't
We
see
have no
anyone.
callers.
Okay. Great. So next, any board or commission member comments? No? Okay. We have
you have to-
nothing under, excuse me?
You have to ask the board if they're.
Any comments?
No. No, any comments? No.
Great. So moving on, we have nothing under old business, but we do have new business, starting with the first case at 5117 Dunsmore Avenue. Design Review Board case number 000-430-2022. And I will briefly read the project description as the case planner.
I can read the project.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
that's half my presentation. All right, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Design Review Board. The first item this evening is case number PDR 000432-2022. It is a review of a proposal to add to an existing 1,333 square foot single-family residence. All right. The project proposes to add just over 100 square feet to the first floor of the residence and construct a new 571 square foot second floor. The lot is located at 5117 Dunsmore Avenue, is approximately 7,700 square feet, and zoned R1, Floor Area District 2. Let me go over quickly the PowerPoint presentation. Because there we go, sorry. Okay, location map. The site is highlighted in a black outline. It's in the far northern part of the city, just south of Markridge. This is an aerial view from Google. The site is highlighted in red. A front picture of the residence as it is current. The site plan of the residence, Dunsmore is on the right-hand side. Actually, the garage is in front of the house, and the site plan shows the location of the first floor addition, which is diagonally hatched close to the southern property line, and then the second floor is diagonally hatched, and it's sort of irregular in shape. Okay. The front elevation of the house, looking from Dunsmore, you can see the garage sort of outlined. The rear elevation and the two side elevations, the north elevation and the south elevation. And again, on this elevation, you can see the garage outlined. It is not being touched as a result of the project. A rendering of the proposed design. The floor plan. This floor plan, the darkened area is the square footage addition on the first floor. So you can see they're adding to their entry, they're adding some space for stairs and then a laundry room. This is the new second floor. Roof plan. Garage elevations, again, this is not being touched. Some section drawings. This is sort of the proposed residence is in the center, and then the surrounding development, the surrounding houses are off above and below and to the side. So this gives you kind of a relationship. Material board, and then have some conditions. So let me step back to the front of the PowerPoint. The site planning of the project is acceptable. The addition really does not change the site planning in any significant manner. The side-loaded garage, as I mentioned before, is not being touched. There is a small addition at the front. which expands the entryway and allows for the staircase to the proposed second floor. But really, other than that, the site planning is similar to what's existing now. I would like to call out a correction in the staff report. Staff proposed initially a condition to remove or modify the existing wall and fence, which is located along the, it would be the south property line. And this needed to be removed or modified to comply with zoning standards. However, there is a note called out on the plans that said this wall/fence will be removed. So that condition is no longer needed. So similarly, the mass and scale of the project is appropriate. Again, this is the front elevation. The site already contains a graded pad, and there are no changes to the size of this pad. While the neighborhood contains primarily one-story homes, and you can see that in the neighborhood survey, the proposed addition to the subject residence is really set in from the first level, and you can see that on the elevation pretty clearly. And also, the house is really set back from the street. The garage, as I mentioned before, is between the street and the house. Finally, the proposed covered porch highlights the front entry to the home without making it monumental. Staff is suggesting a couple changes to the design and detailing of the residence. At the covered porch, the proposed columns appear a little bit spindly, and staff is recommending that the addition of a fourth column or beefing up the columns that are proposed to make them appear like they are providing more support for the roof element would be recommended. Additionally, staff is recommending reducing the sizes of the proposed balconies and the proposed balcony and porch accessed off the primary bedroom to either less than 25 square feet and or requiring landscaping to be installed adjacent to those areas to provide some buffering to adjacent neighbors. And let me scroll down to the site plan, or I'm sorry, the second floor plan, so that you all can see what I'm talking about. There is a proposed balcony to the west, and there's a proposed porch to the south. Both are over 25 square feet, and as you know, city requirements or city standards require us to look at privacy concerns with balconies, porches over those size, over the 25 square feet. So we have suggested a condition either to reduce the sizes of those features or add landscaping, which would just allow some buffering and some privacy for adjacent neighbors. We did receive one letter expressing some view concerns. I think that was forwarded to you. The gentleman was basically supportive of the project, but more concerned that the city didn't really have view protection, basically. Additionally, the applicant recently submitted, and I can give to you, plans with neighborhood signatures that are in support of the project. So I'll hand those over to you, but other than that, that concludes my presentation. Staff is recommending approval of the project with 2 conditions contained in the staff report, and as I said earlier, we can eliminate the 3rd condition regarding the fence wall.
Great, thank you. Mr. Kiesel, do we have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Keiser, can you leave up the rendering as we go through deliberation?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah. Yeah, I had another question. So just to be clear, because I don't see it in the conditions in the staff report, but you said that there should be a condition about privacy, reducing the balcony sizes or adding privacy.
Condition 2 suggests, and I'll just read it, the second floor balcony and porch shall be reduced in size to less than 25 square feet.
That's not what I see.
That's not in our,
Did we do? No. Okay. I apologize for that, yeah.
What we sometimes do with potential privacy is just, I'll bring it to your attention. And often, if you don't hear from any neighbors, we think maybe there isn't an issue, or but if you thought there was, you might propose buffering or something.
Okay, all right. I just wanted clarification
So,
on that. So,
yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry about that. Actually, you actually have the correct conditions in your staff report.
Okay.
okay.
So, yeah.
So it's more of a consideration?
I'm sorry?
It's more a consideration for us to be aware of?
Yes.
I would say not technically a consideration the way we write them at the end with the conditions, probably just a point for you to think about, for you to consider, but.
Okay,
You all need to realize it's over 25 square feet in area. Those features are over 25 square feet in area and could be privacy concerns.
Big
And-
problem, you could make it a condition, you could make it a consideration, or you could just leave it alone.
okay. And just, sorry for my, for a point of clarity, the 25 square foot
me, yeah.
requirement is also for single-family homes? Or is that typically for multifamily?
It's actually only for single family.
Only for single-family, for patios, balconies?
It's balconies, outdoor elevated spaces.
Okay. Thank you.
They have the conditions in their staff report, so. yeah. Let me read them though.
This is our first time back in this hearing room in several years, so there will be a few little moments like this. Sorry.
Do we have any more questions?
No more questions? Okay, great. And then I think we can open up and invite Mr. Giragos.
Good evening, Mike Aragus, 2155 Verdugo. Good to see all of you. Thank you, Roger, for bringing us home. Is it? Where is
Is the light on?
the button?
We've got it over here.
Oh, okay.
They're letting her know.
Like I
I
said,
don't see a button. Is it? I don't know.
It's always on, there's no button for it. Okay, so you're going to speak into
Oh.
into it.
Speak right into it. Okay, I'll lean over and be
There we go.
aggressive.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Mike Aragus, 2155 Verdugo. Great to see all of you. Thank you, Roger, for your help getting this going. I'll be relatively brief. I think we're in agreement with the staff report, except for a few items. The issue about the balcony is absolutely news for me, so I don't know if that was news for you guys. So we didn't know that was a thing. Nice to know that that's a thing. I didn't know that was a thing. Obviously, didn't have a chance to talk to my client about it, the owner about it. But I will say that both husband and wife, were born in the area, spent their whole life here, been in this house for 11 years, would like to stay. This is a very modest addition, I think. Even after the addition is done, you're just slightly over half of the allowable. So it's a very modest addition. When I do a second floor, I like to bring the sides in. These come in considerable. There's a 5'6" on the south side, and there's an 11-foot setback on the second floor. So that everything possible to kind of minimize the impact of the second floor. I do like to have owners, especially when they're doing a second floor, to go and talk with neighbors. I think there's a nice neighborly thing about that when you discuss it with a neighbor. And they were able to contact the ones that I think would be the most impacted, essentially the ones on the south. They were in support of the project, and they would be really the only person that would have any impact in terms of the balcony. I'd also like to say the two at the rear, those structures are 82 feet away, and the other one is 96 feet away. So it's quite a considerable distance from the house, and I don't think it's inappropriate to have the balcony, and it is just going where it would normally be. It's structure-wise and massing-wise, I think it's appropriate. 25 square feet, I don't think is realistic as a balcony, especially on a major addition. I will comment on one thing on the porch. Actually, I'd actually like to see it as two columns that were slightly larger. I probably should have presented that originally. I'd like to have them maybe be 8 by 8 and just do the two corner ones. 16 feet is basically 4 panels behind you, so I think trying to put 4 columns in that distance is way too busy. I think 3 is probably still too many, so I would like to see maybe 8. If you wanted to comment on that, that would be great.
I mean, 8 foot.
Just do 8-inch, sorry, 2 8-inch columns. Two
Not
of them,
8
sorry.
columns. Okay.
Not 8 columns, no, we're not, that's great. Materials are as we said, and the only thing, we made the note about the wall. The garage isn't being modified, and we did comment on the windows, those are corrected. Some of the, as was commented, some of the conditions, 2 of which I had addressed and crossed paths with the final report, but are addressed. So if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Yes?
Madam Chair, there is a condition number 2, regarding the windowsills being consistent throughout. Any thoughts on that?
Well, depending on how flexible you want to be. I think the north side is not really being touched, so I think it would be nice if we didn't have to modify the northern windows. I think there's the windows that face the garage. You can sort of see it on that one. It'd be nice, maybe that could probably stay. But I think having to modify windows at, either at the back or on that north side, I think would be unnecessary, I think. So if that was a way of addressing that. But otherwise, we would be consistent with everything else that is visual.
What are the existing windows?
They are, I think they are I think they're aluminum, actually. It's on this schedule. I think it's on the schedule. Apologize for that.
I guess, are you wondering if they
Vinyl.
are stucco silled?
Yeah, they haven't.
So they're all vinyl, it seems, right?
Yeah, I think they were all actually old vinyl. Sorry about that.
I don't want to speak for Roger, but I think one of the issues, there was just kind of disparity between the section drawing that showed a hardy material for the sill, and then the drawing showed a stucco sill. I wasn't familiar with a stucco sill on a sided building, so I wasn't sure if that was just a drawing error, so we wanted to,
Yeah, it was just, we'll consider it a graphic typo, so. the
but you're
intent is to
proposing sills made of,
do the hardy sill, yeah.
okay.
And that's reflected on the corrected window section.
So it will be a hardy trim.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that was gonna be one of my questions as well. I see siding on the elevations, but your keynote calls out stucco. So the plan is to have,
Siding on the areas that graphically show, yes.
wherever it's graphically shown, it is hardy siding and then stucco everywhere else. Okay? Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one question. Did you consider setting back, you talked about setting back the sides, but did you consider setting back the facade, the street-facing facade a little bit?
It's, first of all, it's way far back, first of all.
no, I get it.
But I do have a bias on that, and I think, I can understand how somebody would want to have a minimal impact for a building from the street. But I personally don't like the idea that if you're trying to make a 2-story house, the goal is to make it look like it had always been a 2-story house, in my mind. And I think a 2-story house that was done originally would have massing at the front. So I think the question is, can you make an attractive front facade as opposed to just trying to reduce the massing? So I think in my mind, the goal is to make a front facade that looks like it had been a 2-story. That's always my goal, so.
And generally, I think you succeeded there. The only thing that stuck out at me, and you can't really see it in that rendering, but there's this narrow ribbon of roof that juts out in front of that the master bathroom there, which just looks out of scale to me. It just seems very narrow. Yeah, if we can pull up
The
the
front
street,
elevation.
the front elevation.
That is, I believe that is just the remainder, one second.
Just from a balanced design perspective, it just seemed a little thin to me. That's all I'm saying.
It's
you know?
actually just, it was my way of breaking the facade at that point. It's
yeah.
stacking, so.
I understand. I
If it
understand.
bothers you, we could take it out, but it was my intent of breaking the
Yeah, okay.
vertical plane, so.
All right. I just wanted to ask if you'd considered it, so.
Yeah,
okay.
no, that, it was, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's so far back and it's behind the garage
Mm-hmm.
that, I think it was more important to me to make it feel like it had always been a two-story.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Giragos? Nope. Okay, thank you, Mr. Giragos. We have no other cards here for this case. Do we have any callers?
We have one caller.
Okay. Or did you want to speak? No.
Mr. Michael Weber. Michael Weber, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Yeah, thank you very much. Michael Webster,
Oh, I'm
thank
sorry.
you for reading my letter. And just a point of clarification is while, we have dear neighbors, we do support their desire to build, and they do need to expand for their fans. A comment was made that we supported the project. In my letter, I didn't support nor oppose the project. Want to be clear. I was disappointed with the comments of the architect that the neighbor to the south has impact, but really the neighbor to the north does have impact on the view, and really gets to the fact that Glendale has completely inadequate view laws. But it is what it is, and we just wanted to make sure we went.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
you have any other comments?
That concludes my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any?
We have no other callers.
No other callers, okay. So if we have no other speakers, then I think we can close the public portion and move on to deliberations.
Rebut, because technically there was a comment, so they can.
Oh, that's right.
That is true. Mr. Giragos, would you like a rebuttal period?
I'll be very brief.
Okay,
First, I would like to correct that. That is, the intent was that they were neutral on the project, so I would like to clarify that. It was good that the owners had talked to them, which I think is positive. I think they talked together last night. I think it's important that the distinction here is really between privacy and view. And my comment was really about the fact that what is part of this board is privacy issue. And I was really commenting that the one that would be most affected would be the one at the south, which is a privacy issue, which is part of your purview. So that was what the intent of what I was trying to say. I think it is good to keep in mind that these all terrace down the street, the one that the caller to the north or the owner to the north is on a pad that's 5 foot higher. They're talking about a view out of their second story window. So I think that might be a little far to assume that that view would somehow take precedent over them getting a second floor. I think that probably isn't appropriate. They still have views front and back. And actually, this addition, if you look on the site plan, or in the one of the adjacent site plan, the addition is actually sort of in between and doesn't really affect the majority of their portion. So the house is actually shifted forward in addition to the one that's to the south. So that's all I would say. Unless you have a question.
great, thank you. Mr. Simonian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In regards to the patio on the second floor, or the porch, I should say, on the second floor on the south-facing side, I guess as staff wanted us to consider a smaller porch, but that's getting really small for it to be usable. The other option they were indicating was a possible landscape buffer. What thoughts do you have on that in regards to the porch and also the balcony, the south and the west one, of integrating landscaping or a buffer of some sort? Any thoughts to that?
Well, I've had projects before, and I would defer to the fact to the only time that's been an issue on projects that I've had like that is when the neighbor came and complained about an issue of the privacy. I think the fact that that southern neighbor is actually on signature in support of this project, I don't see that as an issue. So to create an issue for it and then make amendments accordingly, I think is unnecessary. So that would be my comment. And I think the rear deck is a considerable distance away from any other property that would have an issue, so.
Well, they haven't called, but at the same time, you do have two second floor, one porch, one balcony, both on the second floor. And so when an applicant has one, we tend to question it, but two, I guess we tend to question it a bit more. So with that, if we do have as a board concerns about privacy or landscaping buffers, what thoughts would you have specifically on the porch on the second side, on the second story on the south side that you think might help the issue?
Again, they're signatories, they signed an agreement to the project, so things could be done, I just don't think it's relevant in this particular case, because they've obviously signed in support of the project, so, I mean, you could be talking in their stead, but I think, you know, they've seen the project, they're very much in support of it, they've signed accordingly, so I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
You know, obviously, the board can do what it wants to do, but I think you would be putting yourself in their position, and they've already showed support for it, so I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, now we can close the public portion of the hearing and move on to deliberations. Mr. Welch, would you like to kick us off?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fine. Generally speaking, I think the design is very well considered and very well done. I agree it's quite modest. I think it's a nice design, well in keeping with the neighborhood and the current existing conditions. So I think that you've done a very good job there. And generally speaking, I support the project. I think that's I know what we want to do in terms of breaking up that second floor. It's just a little tacked on roof line there was, I mean, it'd be nice if it was stepped back another couple of feet to give a little bit more credence to that, or increase, you know, the overhang a little bit to give it a little bit more weight. But, you know, that's a kind of a nitpick thing for me. But so generally speaking, I'm fine. I think staff's conditions are fine. I think we're going to be removing condition number 3 already. I think talking about the columns, I think I agree with the architect that 2 more substantial columns at the corners would be sufficient. I don't think that having the 3 is necessary, and certainly 4 I think is definitely too much. So I'm in favor of having 2 larger scale columns at the corners. And aside from that, I might support, you know, if we wanted to talk about some consideration for landscaping buffer or something like that. But I visited the site. I didn't really see that there was going to be a huge privacy issue there. And certainly at the back one, I don't think that there would be. The side one, I think, is where there would be some concern about it, because it is pretty close to the property to the south. And with all due respect, we still have to be considerate of all future owners, you know, not just the ones who are there now. So it is our job to be thinking like them. So so that's what I would recommend or suggest for discussions. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Welch, Mr. Simonian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I concur. It's a modest addition, well done. Overall, it steps back in all direction. It is a unique site just because it has so many properties that abut it. So it has 2 actually properties on kind of the west side, and then the north and the south. And in that, it does kind of create an interesting question in regards to the privacy. I absolutely understand the owner to the south has not called in, or they might not even realize there's a porch there, but it is something that is discussed quite often in this setting. In regards to the design and the materials, I think it's well done. One of my thoughts was going to be to reduce the number of columns to 2, so I think that's spot on. I also think the 2 windows behind the porch in the front are a bit more on the vertical side, and I think if they just got a little wider, it would actually add to the proportionality, I guess, of the front facade. And just looking at the floor plan, that could easily be done. by making it wider. But in regards to the porch, if they do want a usable porch, it is kind of difficult to reduce that south porch much more, because then it just becomes unusable. They do have a side setback, which case could be landscaped. I mean, in most situations, we would ask that area to be roofed, to reduce the privacy concerns, to reduce mass. But if they are really set on having those two porches, one on the south side, one on the rear, we certainly could landscape it. The kitchen is below it. There's a kitchen window over there. And so I was thinking how that could be done, but that could easily be done with providing some taller shrubbery along the southern property line that would grow in height. Might help everybody. It might create a more pleasant view out of the kitchen, and at the same time, it would create a nicer setting even on the porch area. But that's something I would recommend as well. Overall, I'm in support of the project with staff's conditions, minus making the porch or the balcony smaller, but integrating landscaping in to create privacy. And I think it's perhaps important to, if there is consensus, to discuss that window, but it's not a deal killer for me, but I think it would help the front facade. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. I concur with my fellow board members. I think the design is modest and nicely done. Happy to hear that the siding is in fact part of the design and not just stucco. I guess I should have asked this earlier, but wondering why the north facade didn't have the vertical boards, but I'm guessing it's because you're keeping the existing, which makes sense. I concur about the 2 columns on the front porch, and am in support of the project with all the conditions stated, as well as the landscape addition that Mr. Simonian suggested. So with that, are we clear or do we move?
We can read back the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the first condition, reduce the number of columns to 2 and make them beefier, approximately 8 inches by 8 inches in thickness. That's the first condition. Second condition, ensure the window information is consistent throughout the plans and provide non-stucco provide hardy frame sills throughout. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And also the windows need
Except
to
we
be
don't
wider.
write hardy, hopefully.
Yes.
We try to just leave it vague.
Oh, and provide wood
But I
sills.
think the architect
Cementitious
was
or-
referring to the windows that are existing, we're not touching. Is that the intent? This is just for the new ones that we're doing this for?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't read the whole condition. And provide cementitious sills and trims for the new recessed windows. Does that sound good?
Yes.
We're going to eliminate condition number 3. Condition number 4, if the garage exterior is to be remodeled, the appearance, siding, style, and design of the street visible elevations of the garage shall be maintained. Clarification condition.
Oh,
Yeah.
These lights are useless.
The next condition, windows at the porch should be widened for proportionality. And that was Mr. Simonian's suggestion. Does that make sense? And then,
there's a way to phrase it. If you prefer, please do so now.
I didn't feel strongly either way.
Yeah, and
so-
I could go either way on that. It was something that I thought would help the front facade, but it's not something that I think.
do you want to make that a consideration then?
I think that's.
I mean, the only issue there is one of them is the laundry room, and it looks like widening that would then, the dryer might be exposed through the window
They
or
would have to go
something.
away from the dryer.
Yeah.
They would have to go the other way, and the other window would have to go towards
Right,
north,
if it worked, yeah.
yeah.
So we'll just make that a consideration. And then install tall shrubs at the side yard adjacent to the kitchen/porch. Sure.
I think the
How-
intent is
well-
really just to provide screening for the second floor
Right.
balcony there, so.
So it looks like that porch is 11 and a half feet, like, wide? Is that correct? Correct, yeah. Yeah,
And I heard that possibly as a consideration. I wasn't sure where you landed for the
I think
buffer.
that is more of a condition.
Yeah, that's fine. I
Okay.
was putting it out there, but if everyone thinks that it should be conditioned, that's fine.
I'm sorry, condition?
Condition.
Okay. And let me look at my notes, I think that was it. Jay, did you have anything else?
No, that's
Okay.
all I got.
That's what we have.
Okay,
Did you
well, with
want-
those conditions, I'll go ahead and move for approval with those conditions.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion was made to approve the project with conditions that were just listed. This will be a roll call. Mr. Simonian,
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Welsh,
Yes.
and Ms. Chagayan.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
thank you.
Good luck. Congratulations.
I'd like to inform the board and the public that Board Member Kaskanian will not be able to attend the board meeting, so he will not be present. However, we still have a quorum with 3 board members, so we can proceed. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right. Looks like we need a couple minutes, or a minute. Okay.
I'm going to change my presentation. I have a new one. Oh, you have a new one? I just made a quick tweak, so.
Oh, did you?
It's in there.
Okay.
Just need it. I added one more slide. Yeah. Mhm. Just need to transfer.
Is it on planning share? Okay, we can enter.
Forget it. Hopefully my computer doesn't. Oh, no, I'm on the one. No, not that one. Down.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Gesundheit.
Put the cursor. Is there? Okay, board members, this next item before you is located at 330 Wonderview Drive. Design Review Board case number PDR 000049-2022. This is the project site. There's an aerial which identifies the lot in yellow. Highlight, it is approximately 2.3 acres, 101,476 square feet. It's a hillside lot located in the R1R restricted residential zone. Floor area ratio District 2. It has an average current slope of 61.46%. It is an irregular shaped lot. Some of the views of the subject house with an attached garage. The existing house is a one-story, 2,653 square foot single-family house built in 1969. And the other view of the property is from the street below on McGinn, looking up towards the site. I tried to consolidate so I don't have that many slides, just to kind of work quickly through the presentation and have the opportunity for the applicant and the public to speak. So I'll go quickly. Again, I've already described a little bit of the site in terms of its size, the zone, frontages on Wonderview Drive and McGinn Drive. McGinn is at the bottom of the site, but it is considered a dual frontage. We've talked about the slope size, or average current slope, and how it slopes down from Wonderview Drive, approximately 120 feet from the street. The building pad is approximately 14 feet below street level, and the house is, again, on a relatively flat pad, and we discussed the existing single-family house that's currently there. The project proposal is to demolish the existing house. They're proposing a new two-story, 5,919 square foot single-family house with a three-car attached garage. The lower level will have approximately 1,599 square feet, and the upper level will be approximately 4,100 square feet. The garage is divided into a one-car and then a two-car, both attached. And there is a swimming pool deck that's proposed on the upper level, approximately 2,600 square feet, and they are proposing to grade 740 cubic yards of cut and then 71 cubic yards of fill. Project is exempt from CEQA review. It involves the new construction of a new house, and the existing house is not eligible for designation or a historic resource. In terms of context, so the house has, again, this long driveway, approximately 100 feet deep from the street, from Wonderview Drive, slopes towards the south. And there are two homes, single-family homes, one-story development directly in front of the subject site, adjacent to the property. And this is another view. Aerial views is probably the best view to kind of capture the context. This image here, again, shows the existing house. It has the mortar court and the swimming pool in the back, and then it slopes down. And then we have the rear of the property is where the pool is on the other image, and then the homes directly in front of the subject site. And then the lower picture represents the image viewed from the street. So you'll have a glimpse of the existing house. And then the remainder just to the right of the property is part of the subject site, has quite a large frontage. Again, the site plan is basically what I just described, so I won't go into too much detail on that. And the floor plans with the roof plan. And some sections highlighting, again, I'll go into the conditions, or I should say some areas of focus that we would like for the board to consider. I'll kind of discuss that a little later. Well, since we're on the image, I might as well do that now. So in terms of condition number 1, we're recommending that the pool, the elevated swimming pool, be lowered. As proposed, it doesn't appear to follow the hillside guidelines. You're creating some retaining walls, some backfill. Again, we want to mitigate that building mass, and I'll kind of go into a little bit in the elevations a little further in my presentation. But by lowering it to the lower level, it would help mitigate that building mass and be a little more consistent with the topography in that area. There is some slope, but in this case, as we can see in this section, they're creating some, introducing some fill, again, which is not in keeping with the hillside guidelines. So we would like to kind of just have the board focus a little bit of their attention on that. Let me continue moving on to the next image. Again, more sections of the building. And the overall height is 2 stories and 35 feet, in case I haven't mentioned that before. Another thing regarding site planning, and let me go to that image real quick. We're suggesting condition number 2 to reduce the width of the driveway as much as possible while still in compliance with the 10-foot minimum width required by the zoning code. Again, the way it's currently, in its current form, seems pretty subtle driveway. It seems to flow nicely. Continuing that same thing, we believe would be appropriate. In addition to that, if their intent is to enhance the existing design of the driveway, that's certainly something that would work well. But again, enlarging or increasing the width, we suggest that reducing it from to 10 feet approximately would be more appropriate. And again, we'd like to reduce the amount of paving as much as possible. These are some renderings or image elevations of what the house would look like. So again, there is some visibility, but not too much visibility from Wonderview. As you continue on Wonderview across the bend, of course, you will see the house more from a distance. And then you have from the street below, there will be some visibility, but quite a ways, more than 100 feet away. And these are some renderings of the front entry and the rear view of the house as proposed, and the color materials and finishes that the applicant is requesting. And then the last condition has to do with light fixtures, again, just to reduce the number of fixtures, limiting it to locations of entries, front entry and side entries, etc. And they are proposing to landscape right around the building footprint. And the 3 conditions that we discussed. So staff is recommending approval with 3 conditions. We did receive 1 letter, email correspondence, which you received. There was some concerns raised by one of the neighbors. No, wait, I'm sorry. I did not receive, I take that back. I did not receive any email correspondence. I was thinking of the other project, yes. Same applicant, different project. So with that, just one highlight is that I wanted to bring up is that this case many years ago, not this particular case in front of you, but a previous rendition of a proposal on that property was presented to the board, but I don't believe they ever pulled building permits or anything like that, so it expired. Their design review board expired after 2 years. So this is a completely different project. So with that, I will conclude my remarks. If you have any questions, I am available.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes.
Just one clarification. So for the maximum height for a retaining wall, I just want to be clear, that's supposed to be 15 feet is the maximum, correct? No? It can be higher than that?
Well, this is a little interesting of a site, and that's the reason why the applicant's proposing a crib wall. Because there are some, yes, you could go 15 feet if it was hidden, if it was an uphill condition, completely screened by the primary building. But this has, by the subject building, not screened by a neighboring building. So where they're proposing that retaining wall, which I can, if you notice on the top right area of that section view, it shows the proposed retaining wall. I'd have to zoom in on one of my images here, but I want to say it's about, I want to say 7 to 11 feet. I have to look it up just to make sure, maybe in the report. So the 15-foot height would not work in this case because it's not being screened by the primary building. In essence, it would be screened by maybe the adjacent home, but that's not the way it would work in the code, with the code.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, the other condition about lowering the pool height, is the primary concern the height of that retaining wall at the base of it? Is that the concern?
The mass, no, because essentially that wall is part of the building, right? It's more of the building mass that's created as a result of that feature. So I don't know if maybe showing the rendering that's in front of you on the lower left corner here, if we can see where that's that pool deck that rises up sort of like a block, if you will. So it's not a separate retaining wall. It's all part integrated as part of the building. So it's still part of the building mass. So it's just that, again, that volume seems kind of blocky, and for that reason, we're suggesting that softening that facade while at the same time not creating that backfill condition, which they're doing, would be more in keeping with the guidelines.
Thank you. And because it's on the downslope side, the height, it's not being considered a retaining wall. That's why the height's not an issue. It's part of the building.
Right.
Understood.
Right, if this were part of the building with habitable space behind it, it would be broken up with windows, maybe a balcony railing or something. It would be a very different feature. Where here it feels like a big retaining wall that we normally would avoid on this, but technically it's not a retaining wall, so that's why we're bringing it to your attention. And we also, there are 2 decks on the house, and we can't tell people how they want to use their property, but there is a deck that could serve as a very nice pool deck at the lower level also, if it were dropped.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you, Milka. We could invite the architect to come on up, Mr. Zorabians.
Yes, good evening,
Thank-
Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Hamlet Zorabians, and I'm the project architect on this project. And as you know, there's different circumstances, different features to any site. So not 2 sites are the same at all times. So you cannot uniformly apply a code that has a different intention to it. So this particular site is very unique. And so when we approached the planning of it, first of all, the very first thing that we did, we looked at the building and we saw two of neighbors, adjacent neighbors to the north. And so what would you do? I mean, you cannot resolve this thing in a one-story building. So you had to have another level. So from the very beginning, this is 2.5 years ago, what we decided to do, mutually agreed to, instead of going up to the second floor on top of the first floor, if you will, keeping the pad, but we actually created a lower level, lower story underneath. We felt, and I'm certain that the impact is much, much less because it really, really results in a very low grading. We're not, changing any formation all around us. And so when we are looking at this project, we should look at it this way. And so what we did, if you will, the deck that contains the swimming pool actually constitutes the roof for the first floor. So because the first floor is below deck, is designed in the cavity, so we are not introducing any other retaining walls or multiple retaining walls that a lot of the projects produce. Our intention is not to go there and then just cut through the the slope and then put a two-story building on it. That's not what we did. We really worked out on this project as far as the contours are concerned, what to do, how much we can go in and out. We did articulation. It's a modern building, and everything speaks to that. But what I want you to also consider, if you will, please, that when you're looking at this solution, we look at it this way, that we have a two-story building that instead of going up and blocking our neighbor's view, and like you can see our neighbors are not here because they're quite, I think, have no concerns about it, because we kept everything the way it is for them. So the building from the street, when you're viewing it, if you can see even the building, is very, very small. I mean, some portion of it you can see because it's a flag lot, and it's only one story. If you come even to the corner, and when you see the building, it's a one-story building, because the rest of it is contained underneath on the slope itself. So why can't we use that? Why can't we use the cavities on the slope? I mean, this is a 100,000 square feet lot. The nearest neighbor to them is 125 feet away from them. People cannot even recognize after 200, looking at the building in this wall, 100 feet away from it, especially from below, because the properties below is 99 feet below our pad. So this is very unique. This is something that we should look at it and examine the site, very objectively. We have to really take a look at it to see what the intention is here. The intention is not to be cavalier and do something, but we have introduced some sort of a design that will work with everyone, and so it would avoid neighbors coming in, sending you invoices, and all of that. And that's what we did. The two properties to the north, they have no problem as far as the blockage of the view. And what we have done, we've corrected the existing retaining wall behind it, and that's why Mr. Walsh was asking about it, that the retaining walls in the back, what we did, we had to correct it because that slope was coming in against the existing, garage, and they are having water problems all the time. So what we are doing here, I have to have some sort of a clearance behind it, not only for that, but also for firefighting accessibility. So what we've done, we've cleaned up that area there. From the very beginning, we introduced retaining wall there, and instead of having just a one monolithic retaining wall, we chose to go with a crib wall, which will, basically allow some vegetation to grow in it and all. And so I think that's a very nice way of looking at the building. Now, as far as the swimming pool is concerned, if the mass is the issue, and the slope being 1-to-1, okay, I can push the swimming pool back 5 feet. That's going to reduce 5 feet of the height. But it's not only that. I mean, I can take the swimming pool and bring it down 3 feet. So that's another 3 feet. But is it really worth it or not? I mean, if that's that critical to resolve, we can do all the suggestions. But I don't want to take the rightfully where the swimming pool is in the living space and right in front of you as you're coming in the entry level, and take it down to where the bedrooms are. You know what's going to happen? They're not going to be able to use the swimming pool. And then the whole grandness of the swimming pool is gone. And so this is what I have the issue with. And I've actually, discussed, and, we already discussed these issues. I mean, I can massage that area there, but is it really something that is so hard for us to do? Is it something that really want to see reduced? because the nearest property to us, not property, but the buildings that there are already, the rest of it, you cannot even build on them. They're so sloped there. It's this ravine that is there is 99 feet deep ravine, and you have the houses below that you can't even see the tip of the swimming pool. So what I'm saying is, if you look at it this way, and that the swimming pool, we worked it out within the building, as staff was also mentioning. Yes, I mean, it's not a, freestanding swimming pool with a deck or something. It's not like that. It's integrated in it. What made it possible is just to moving the second floor addition to down below, and then that really gave us that opportunity. From inside, it's very nice. People walk through their connecting corridor. They see the windows inside the swimming pool. They're going to enjoy the inside the swimming pool. Why not? I mean, why not be creative? This is what we want to see in Glendale. I think I'm very proud of it. And so we have given bedrooms, guest bedroom, everything that is possible to the building. We've split the garage, 3-car garage that we were required to have, into 2 and 1. And doing so, we were able to reduce the mass in the front, actually. And we've made the existing space in front of the garage door into a turnaround. So we have created this turnaround, so when the cars are, you can imagine, 100 feet they're driving. I myself, every time I visited that site, I had to back up with my car all the way out. 100 feet, and it's so difficult. So what we've done there, we cleaned it up, made it more functional. It's accessible to fire department. All these things that are working out in this building. So the only thing that there is also I want to mention about the driveway. Yes, the driveway, we wanted to widen it. We're not going to be introducing any retaining walls or anything like this. We're just going to cantilever it because we have to redo the driveway structure anyway. So we could cantilever it, so you won't see the difference. Right now, we were asking for 17 feet wide, but we don't have to do that. We can reduce that to 15 feet. But at least 15 feet, so when the cars are coming, they're safe. Right now, it's so narrow. It's 10, but 10 for a 20-feet stretch is okay. But when it's 100 feet drive, it's really dangerous. There's no protection on the slope side and everything like that. So what we are trying to do is just to make the house work the best it can. We are helping the house to be itself, and that's what it's supposed to be. And so rest of the, number 3 recommendation, I have no issue with that. It's just that we prefer to have the swimming pool on the first level. And if you have to make some adjustments to it, we will do. But to take it all the way to the first level, that's something that we don't want to have. And that's what my 2 cents is. Obviously, I was going to describe so beautifully the design of the house and everything. I just don't have the time. Obviously, I'm not allowed to do that. So I've written notes and everything. I don't have the time, but I'll be available if you have any questions. I'll be available, and then I'll be able to help the project as far as the answers are concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Zarabians.
Thank you.
Any questions for the architect?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have some questions, but are there any callers? And if there will, I could do it during a rebuttal stage.
There aren't, but I do have 2 additional speaker cards.
Oh,
Yes.
Then I'll do it during a rebuttal.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Smith?
Yeah, the architect addressed my.
Oh, please come on right up. And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Smith. My mom lives at 335 Wonderview Drive. I'm the trustee of the property, which is across the street and just a little bit down. I have no major concerns after listening to the architect. The only thing I would ask is, in that area, the tract of homes in that area is over 50 years of age. And so there's a lot of fill, there's a lot of drainage, and I wondered, under this substantial construction, is there anything planning with regard to erosion of the fill, water damage? We've had a lot of rains and the like. Is there any thought of improving the drainage system and the fill surrounding the property? Where they're building is going to be magnificent. This is a huge point home, but surrounding that 2.5 acres is largely fill, and that's what it was designed to be, a view corridor and a fill. But I didn't hear, with all this construction and this magnificent home, are they going to reinforce the drainage system so when we get the next huge rains or fires or whatever, does it have the infrastructure not to erode down onto McGinn? So that was my only real concern.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Riedinger? Riedinger, apologies.
Hi, I live at 230 Wonderview Drive with my wife. We've lived there 24 years. Our property's 1.8 acres, and you showed on your pictures here that there were two houses above at the street level of the project and the pad that the project is proposed on. I'm the next house over, so the two lots at the top next to the proposed project, those are very small lots. My lot is larger and winds around to the proposed lot at 330 Wonderview Drive. And my concern is how they're going to funnel that water and drain that water from that swimming pool in that driveway, which you showed on your drawings here, or renderings. I think it's got the 61% grade. Because I took pictures recently today, and they've been draining that property for years in a 5 to 6 inch plastic pipe, running the water down from their property to McGinn, the street that runs below. And they're running that pipe across my property, and they've washed part of my property down into the backyard of the house below. And 6, 7, 8 years ago, I had to have crews come out, dig out that mud and dirt from the house below me, and then build new concrete swales, because the city told me, since those concrete swales are on my property, on my hillside, on my canyon, I'm responsible for their upkeep, maintenance, and existence. Well, those are very difficult to build on those 70% slopes in that canyon. It just takes one drive out there to see how steep that is. So my concern to the architect here would be that they're going to modernize that and figure out some way. I would think they'd have to drain the water to the street below McGinn just due to gravity. They can't drain it back up to Wonderview. So that's my concern with the property, more than the elevations or what it's going to look like or how high it's going to be. But I would be concerned that they modernize that so I stop getting mudslides on my property. So I could leave these pictures.
Sure.
If anybody would
Thank you.
like those, if they show the pipelines coming down from this property up here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so the board knows, that first more pleasant chime is the 30-second warning if you, for the future.
Oh, okay.
We have
I
two
was so
new
used to
chimes,
Villia's,
Cell phone.
the alarm of time's up. Apologies.
This is the great benefit of our new technology that you've seen in action tonight. so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Zarabian's, oh, do we have any callers? Oh, we have two callers, apologies.
First caller, Carolyn Ramsey. Carolyn Ramsey, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, hi. We are residences at 300 Wonderview, one of the two homes north of the property, and we were not given a petition or the opportunity to comment. But two of our main concerns are, first off, when this property is finished, approximately 45% of our view, our Wonderview, is gone. And second off, both our house and the neighbor's house are predominantly windows on the back because of step view, and the construction would compromise our privacy to the extent that we would likely have to move. We have a young child and we work from home, and we are pretty stressed out about this situation. Also, consideration for the street down below, considering the grade of the hill, I would imagine there's going to have to be large construction crews parked on McGinn and on Wonderview in order to pull this off. So I just wanted to voice from one of the two houses above.
Thank you.
Next caller. Thank you. Next caller, Andrew. Andrew, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board. You wish not to give me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for letting me have an opportunity to speak. This is Andrew Sharp, another neighbor at 347 Wonderview. I had 3 points to kind of bring up, one of which was echoed by a number of neighbors regarding the treatment of water, considering kind of the slope. I think they, put their thoughts together really nicely, but was certainly a concern I had, especially with the extreme rain we've been getting recently and expected to continue into the future. The consideration along those lines and hearing about the issues with the swales that had been constructed in the last decade, certainly a concern for any homeowner up here. Secondly, there was a comment earlier that the architect made regarding the view not being impacted, but as a neighbor, you can see the flags outlining the shape of this building that went up pretty recently, and those are clearly not the same roof line of the existing house. So the impact from the previous caller at the house directly behind the site property, those considerations of view and privacy are something that I would have concerns with for anyone in the area. And then thirdly, a comment from the architect that there were no neighbors here, so obviously everyone's in support team. Something that was striking to me, considering it has been since the board went up and the letters went out very recently, the key topic amongst all the neighbors up here, and I just wanted to share that as I think most of us are listening in order to gather information as we did not have this information beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other?
No other callers this evening.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So, Mr. Zarabian, we'll invite you back up for a chance to rebuttal. And we'll keep an ear out for the light chime.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to apologize to the neighbors. And the reason I said that there's no neighbors here is because I really didn't receive any paperwork from them, or they had called, so I was not really aware of it. And I apologize to the neighbors, because I think it's very important. Neighbors are one of the most important thing in when you want to live somewhere, because you need to have in good terms with your neighbors, and that's what the intention of my client is. As far as the drainage is concerned, those things are going to be all addressed, obviously, to the latest standards that there is right now, and by the building and safety. And so there's going to be swell systems. They're going to have to catch the water. And if you can look at our sections, we have already shown the swells there and how we're going to be reclaiming all the waters and everything. That's going to be a part of it. Now, our property goes, as I understand, all the way down to the street below. So we have to have come up with some sort of a system that will be able to properly take it there without any erosion. And so I can't speak to what 8 years ago was happened. With all due respect, I really don't know. But I am sure that when the new construction is going on, has to be to the standard, the latest standards right now. So there's going to be inspectors that they're going to be walking there. There's going to be from Public Works and so on and so forth. A lot of departments are going to visit the site and make sure that everything works as far as that is concerned. So that will be worked out. As far as the view is concerned, that one I didn't really understand, because I looked at every property. I don't know how we are saying that the view is blocked, because especially for the two existing houses above us, their pad is 20 feet above our pad. So I'm not sure if maybe they're not looking at the sections that we have, because the most we're going to have there is about 15 feet, 14, 15 feet. So when they're standing on their pad, they're not going to be able to see even our roof from down below. So that, I don't know. Any other neighbor or anyone else that is far from us, maybe 90 feet, 125 feet, that's what I measured. Those, I don't know, I cannot speak to that fact. But we have done our utmost, because we began this project designing it just for that, just to making sure that we are not intruding into the neighborhood with a large design or anything like this. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'm available. I mean, I can answer.
Thank you, Mr. Zarabians. Do we have any questions? Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Zarabians, for taking us through this. It is a large site, and it is a flag lot, et cetera. So I feel as though your presentation really helped me to get my arms around the design and the proposal. And you did such a great job presenting it, but I just want to kind of follow up with a couple of thoughts, or questions, I should say. On sheet 831, where the driveway, the proposed driveway is graphically depicted, there's a dashed line. Is that more or less the existing retaining wall? And then the top portion is cantilevered. So you're cantilevering. I see. Got it. So the same retaining wall is staying, but the retaining wall is staying in its current position, but the driveway is working in a cantilever position to get to 17 feet.
Yeah, of course, we have to improve the existing retaining walls, but not replacing it. We have to come up with perhaps some sort of a system that it will also be supportive of that. And then because of the staff, comments or conditions, as I was saying, is that we're willing to reduce that a little bit.
Okay. And I do see on sheet 832, the top of wall of the neighbor is 1143 spot elevation, and if I'm reading it correctly, your spot elevation of the driveway is 1121, so there is a 22-foot difference between the pads.
Yes.
And I guess I know there's a ridge in your design, and what is that highest point of that ridge from that 1121, more or less? I guess that's sheet A51, right?
A5.1?
I think so, right? So that's,
Yeah.
so that's 17 feet. So that's right, you said 5 foot difference, so there is about a 5 foot difference from the top of the ridge to their
Yes.
pad.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. And is that on sheet A5.1, is that a kind of a window into the pool in that section that depicted on 5.1? Is that?
Yes.
Well, that is very unique.
You could put those on the other wall and look out at the city.
Right?
If that's the one, we can do that. It's no problem.
Right. Is that a plexiglass?
Well, we can use, special glass there, and we can have it there, I mean, if you want to.
It's very nice. One thought or question I had, well, suggestion, where staff was talking about the mass of the retaining wall as depicted in sheet A5.1, section number 1, would be, and I'm just asking, at the moment, that area is being filled in underneath the pool, whereas it could turn into a storage area, and there could be a slab that's at the same elevation as the recreation, and then you could actually have metal louvers as a ventilation.
That's a very good suggestion.
And in a sense, it's like a window, and it could be the same color as the window frames, et cetera. You get ventilation in there, and plus, all the plumbing and everything to the pool would be much easier to maintain in the future if you ever have a leak, et cetera. And so that would be one idea I was thinking, because, it's so important to, I think, have that pool level in the living level, accessibility-wise. And so, but at the same time, that wall that's being created is quite massive, as staff is indicating, but that could be an option, is you get some storage out of it. It's not a big wall, there's relief on the wall, and that was something I just wanted to point out.
It's a great idea. Very nice idea. I mean, we can deploy it.
So those were my two questions about the driveway and that, just to kind of follow up with what staff was saying to get a better sense. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. I don't think I have any questions either. And so thank you, Mr. Zarabians. I think you've answered all of our questions. So we can move on and close the public hearing and move into deliberations. Mr. Simonian, if you'd like to kick us off, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I support the project. I support the site planning of the project. I support the way it's laid out. I like the overall design of it as depicted on the rendering. I think they've done a really good job utilizing, natural formation of it, and so far as the roof lines and the way they integrate into the hillside, the materials I thought were nicely configured. The reliefs of the windows in the corners and the variety in the windows, but at the same time utilizing kind of the ceiling windows in special areas, I thought was nicely done. It's a long driveway, and so I do think that there's merits to what staff is saying, but at the same time, if you're cantilevering it, you've kind of addressed that issue. So you're not creating additional grading, but at the same time, you're creating a more safer driveway. I know in a few years, my kids will be driving, and I wouldn't want my son to be backing up on that 100-foot driveway, but when it's 10 feet wide. But if it's cantilevered, I don't see an issue as much with it. The staff's point is well taken about that retaining wall. And so that idea or thought that I was suggesting, I think will do wonders for it, because in a sense, you'll completely break up that wall, create storage space underneath it that's less than 6 feet tall. All the plumbing and everything will be accessible. And in so doing, you're able to, I think, create relief while providing a pool in the living level area that really doesn't affect anybody. I mean, if there was a neighbor just below it, that could be a thought, but it's 120 feet difference. There's such a big difference, and a street, when you look underneath it. But I do think staff has a good point. I do think, that would be a good option for us to consider. The language of the design, I think, as I said, well thought out. I like the proportionality of the entrance, et cetera. The materials are of high quality. So I think, staff's done a good job coordinating with the architect, and architect has done a good job working with a difficult site. So I do support the project. I think staff had some good comments, and with those kind of modifications, I think we would able to achieve everyone's goals. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. Mr. Welsh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I generally agree with Board Member Simonian. The height of that area by the swimming pool definitely was one of the key things that jumped out at me, is being a little large. You did a very good job with cladding it with very quality materials that will blend in. So, I think you did a really good job with that. I still think that it's a big massive. So things that we could do to break that up, I think would be a good idea. Because I tend to agree, having the swimming pool on that main level makes a lot of sense. This is obviously a very large, it's going to be a very expensive, glamorous home. And, they want to have that, as you come in through the doors, to be able to look out that. I get that. And, normally in a situation, I would be much more concerned about things like that. But as Board Member Simonian said, this is very set back from the street. It's far away from any other property. It's a huge lot. So I'm certainly prepared to give leeway here on a case like this. I do, however, and just let me also just chime in on the design. I think it's exceptionally well done, very well executed. I love the the way you've broken up all the various masses, so you can have a large home. It's probably significantly larger than anything in the neighborhood, but it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't look like that. You know, it's well, broken up. So I think that you're to be applauded on that. But the driveway, I do agree with staff. A wide, you've addressed the issue of the safety. You have a turnaround in that area, in that entry court area. So would be less concerned about safety issues, and to me, it looks more like it'll be used as, parking for the big parties that are likely to happen there. So I don't like having excessive driveways just for the purposes of having additional parking. So I would be in favor of keeping staff's condition to lessen that width. Less hardscape is always a better thing to do, and we do have to be cognizant of the hillside guidelines. And, if we let go on the pool, I think we should get some consideration on the driveway. So, so those are my thoughts. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. I concur with my fellow board members. I think the design is very beautiful, very well done, broken up, even with the materials as well as the massing. I am not in agreement with staff's recommendation about the pool as well. I concur that I think from a functionality standpoint, it needs to stay on the same level, and safety, because it's a swimming pool. I do, however, agree that the wall is massive, albeit, 120 feet up from the street. Mr. Simonian's suggestion was, I think, a nice one. I do think you can take advantage of using that space under the pool, especially since you're adding fill. It's not a pool that you're digging into the hillside. I appreciate the approach of the planning and the design and how you took it down underneath as opposed to up. I think the neighbors' concern with some of the privacy or the windows, I just wanted to point out, and I don't think you mentioned it, it might have been your clear story windows, which I'd like to just point out to the neighbors, that doesn't mean somebody's gonna have the ability to look into your home, but I know we also mentioned the 20-foot pad elevation difference, which of course helps as well. So I don't really see a concern there. I appreciate you addressing other neighbors' concerns of drainage, which is important, of course, and as Mr. Zorabian stated, that will have to be brought up to current code. So that's something that Building and Safety will, of course, enforce with a project of this scale and size. Overall, I'm in support. The driveway for me, again, the length of it for me that is concerning to be a tight 10-foot driveway. I thought immediately. I like the fact that it's just cantilevering over. You're not adding a new retaining wall. I would be okay with reducing it down, but I don't think it should be 10 feet because existing is 10 feet. So I'm open to talking that out. I do think we're all in agreement about the pool staying where it is, but let's talk about the driveway then.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be down to 10 feet, but I just don't want it to be so wide that you could literally park a row of cars and drive cars down it. So something narrower than that would be what my objective would be.
The architect suggested 15. Is that acceptable number?
Probably work, yeah.
Okay, great. So I think, would you like to read back our conditions? Thank you.
So it sounds like we're going to modify the wording of the first condition to articulate the pool deck and making, I should say, the raised pool deck wall underneath the pool itself, and to make it more functional by perhaps introducing some storage area or maybe pool equipment, the room, etc. So and I don't believe there should be any floor area issues here because it's a pretty large site.
If I could just jump in on that, I think by articulate, I think Ms. Toledo is talking about adding window or
Exactly.
openings. Mr. Simonian mentioned louvers. I know this isn't super visible, but I wonder if windows would be a possibility, and I know louvers might help with a heater if the pool equipment were down there, but.
That's what I was thinking, is eventually the HVAC
Right.
equipment, the pool equipment, et cetera, would go down there. You need ventilation. When you have the louvers with a screen behind it, rodents aren't going in, but at the same time, you're having cross ventilation. But if staff feels as though a window is more appropriate, I'm
We
okay.
could leave it open, a combination of windows or louvers as the architect sees fit, depending on the uses.
There's an open side of it too, that you could have louvers on the side too.
Right, both sides, yeah, especially the one away from the other lower deck, so. So
Guess it
we'll leave it
depends.
as a combo of,
Okay.
Depending on what they decide to use it for, whether it's storage or the mechanical room,
Right.
so.
Right.
Okay, the comment or condition number 2 sounds like we're keeping it, but again, we're modifying it to reduce the driveway to approximately 15, as much as possible, for example, 15 feet. And still remain obviously in compliance with the zoning code. And the last one sounds like it's a keeper, which was just to reduce the number of light fixtures, limiting their locations to entry doors,
That's fine. with
and
me,
to
yes.
submit cut sheets, but I do actually already have a cut sheet, I believe, on the material palette, so. That is all I have. I don't know if, Jay, do you have anything else? But
that was it?
that's it. Do I have a motion to approve the project with those conditions modified?
I'll make a motion to approve the project.
Okay, that's a motion by Board Member Simonian. And do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Welch. Board Member Simonian?
Yes?
Board Member Welch?
Yes.
Madam Chair Chagayan?
Yes,
Motion carries 3-0.
thank you. Are you our case planner for the next case as well?
I am,
Great.
so I am
Same
going.
case planner, same architect.
Oh, here we go.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can we request a 1-minute recess or 2-minute recess?
sure. We're gonna take a 2-minute recess.
Okay.
Yes, let's go ahead and get
Okay.
started.
Well, same case planner and same applicant, different location. This time we're at 400 North Maryland. The subject site is a multifamily zone in the R1250 high-density residential zone on the northeast corner of Maryland and Lexington, just east of our downtown. The existing property is comprised of 3 lots, 3 separate lots. The total site area is 21,450 square feet. And there are existing uses, residential uses on the site, including 2 single-family homes, garages, and a duplex. Built between 1919 and 1920, the project proposes to demolish those existing structures, and the project is exempt from CEQA under a Class 32 infill. A little bit of history, by the way, on the project is that there's already been a density bonus approval with affordable housing component, inclusionary housing approved for this project. I'll briefly go over that a little further in my presentation as it relates to the concessions that were already approved for this project. So again, we're dealing with a multifamily affordable housing density bonus with an affordable housing component. The proposal is to construct a new 4-story multifamily building with a density of 28 residential units. Floor area is approximately 34,900. And again, the density bonus request an affordable housing component was already approved back in July of 2022. At least 15% of the base number of units are being reserved for very low income households, which equates to 4 restricted to very low income households. And the 3 concessions that were already approved for the project included an increase in the maximum allowable building height. So their height is proposed at 4 stories for this project with a 52-foot height, overall height for the project. The increase of maximum FAR floor area ratio was another concession, and the project is proposing FAR at 1.63. And the third concession that was approved, it was to reduce the common open space by approximately 2,600 square feet. The project provides reduce the common open space by 2,600 square feet. It's providing 2,837 square feet of open space, and they're providing 56 parking spaces and a semi-sub parking garage, or I should say underground parking garage. This few pictures of the subject site and some aerial views of the location of the property on the lower right-hand side of your screen. And the floor plans, including the garage, first, second, third, fourth floors, and then there's a roof deck, which also includes some outdoor roof areas for the units on the upper floor. And before I move forward to the elevations, just so you're aware of the context, it does include, let me go back to that slide. It does include some commercial parking structure across the street to the west. The frontage for that building is facing Brown. Again, we're located a block away from the downtown area. And to the north, there's a 2-story multifamily building. And immediately adjacent to the east, this building here, I believe, is a 3-story multifamily, 3-story building. And then we also have 2- and 3-story buildings across the street along Lexington Drive. So with that, I will continue moving on with the elevations for the project. Let me briefly go over some of staff comments, and then again, the applicants here so they can dive further into what they're proposing. So some areas of focus that we're suggesting for the board to consider was to lower the height of the ground planter walls as much as possible. They are proposing on the street, on the street facades, they are proposing, street-facing facades, planter walls. I want to say maybe the applicant can correct me, definitely they're outside the setback area, but they're approximately 3 feet or so high, overall height. So we're suggesting to kind of reduce those to kind of open it more at a pedestrian level. The next comment is more of a general comment regarding gutters and downspouts to, be painted to match the adjacent wall color. Number 3 has to do with any utility connections like backflow. That's more of a zoning item, but again, since we're considering site planning and landscaping, something to consider to make sure to the extent possible, make sure that it doesn't exceed the maximum allowable height of 24 inches if it's in the setback, and 2, to incorporate landscape to the greatest extent possible in those areas. Number 4 is more design related. So we're suggesting, I should say, to introduce more of a cladded base on the lower portion of the base of the building. Cladding that's more, that's appropriate to the building and stylistically complementing the contemporary architecture of the building especially along the street-facing facades. We're suggesting also to replace the horizontal siding, maybe with a different material, maybe something a little more interesting, as opposed to the horizontal siding that they're proposing. Or maybe if they are inclined to keep the horizontal siding, perhaps maybe a different color would be something to consider. And the other consideration is to address the juxtaposition of that smooth stone tiles that are located underneath the roof eave. I should point out, for example, in this area up here, that area seems a little compressed. And we're thinking that maybe the board could give us some direction as to maybe making that a little more open, something to consider. And the next item, yes.
Is the idea that you're referring to the smooth stone tiles, which are on that 4th level, as you pointed out, as a different type of material, or to open it up somehow? I'll repeat it just because I know my mic was off. Is the intent to replace it with some other type of stone material, or is the...
not replacing it. It's just, it seems a little compressed and a lot of maybe materials coming together. I don't know if, Jade, if you had another thought to add?
I could jump in. I think it's a really nice feature to have that kind of differentiation under the cornice line. And one thought was to maybe emphasize that more, to bring it more around to other areas. And when Milk is talking about the juxtaposition, we were a little more concerned the wood siding, which we see on tons of projects these days, didn't seem to fit with this nice new kind of architectural concept that we haven't seen before. So we thought the board might be interested in looking to see if that could be either expanded or, explore other materials or explore other locations for that band under the roof eave, which we do think is a nice feature.
I was a little confused about that because the material board color of those tiles is much darker than I see pictured on the render. I was going to ask the applicant about that, but do you know which is the actual color that is being specified?
My understanding was the actual material board was more of the darker color that's shown depicted for the material board.
Okay.
Also, I think
We'll get to that.
Yeah, and you're saying it's a band, it's actually the full wall back there, right? Because in the elevations, it's that portion of wall.
No, it's basically on the top portions, but the applicant could elaborate, but it's mainly on the top portions just underneath the cornice eaves.
Okay.
And not everywhere either.
Right.
It's just like at the corners.
Yeah, that was the one thought, was maybe expand the use. Maybe that material could also be brought down on the verticals where the wood siding is, maybe with a different color. We just wanted to open that. We didn't want to be too prescriptive in our recommendation there. We just identified it as a nice feature that probably could be even nicer.
So just so I understand it correctly, let's say on the West Street side elevation on the top right, where we have that stucco that turns into the stone, is that on the same plane at the moment? or is that set back in?
It's set in.
Set in. And is it like a balcony area? That's what I'm trying to figure out on the plan.
No, it's just a shallow reveal, but we'll,
Not yet, but you will.
But it's a shadow reveal, it's set
Yes,
in
yes.
an inch or so?
Yes.
But it's not like a balcony, okay, got it, thank you.
okay, and then the last three comments, again, the light fixtures to be clearly shown, and again, limited to the main entry and patio doors. More generic conditions about, providing more details. That's for number 6, of all junctions of when different materials intersect. And the last one was to provide sections, window sections, and window schedule, consistent with our handout. That concludes my presentation, but before I forget, we did have one letter. That was the email correspondence that I had forwarded to the board in advance, and that's all I've received thus far. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Simonian.
Yes, I do have a question for staff. So on sheet A 2.1, which is the first sheet on our printouts, is the middle courtyard portion considered additional open space?
Correct.
I see.
Yes.
And so the additional open space, because I was trying to read along on the density bonus staff report, Exhibit 5. And so the additional open space is per code, but applicant is requesting a reduction of the common open space
Yes.
to
The
100.
200 square foot per unit for the first 25 units, et cetera. That's the common open space regulation that the applicant was granted a concession for.
on. Understood. Whereas in the
And it-
additional common open space
Right.
is fully provided in the
Yes,
courtyard.
yes, and that's correct. And regarding the comment, or I should say the concessions, that's all per state density bonus law, based on their density bonus proposal, requests, and level of affordability.
I see. And is there any common open space on the roof level? I guess where's the roof line?
No, I believe those are, is it common? Okay.
We have provided, but it's normally, it's not added to the common area.
Yeah, it's private open space. It's not common open space for the neighbors, or I should say for the residents.
Okay. Goes fourth story. Is this the roof?
Are there any additional questions for staff?
I guess what sheet number is the roof plan?
Let me get it for you, 1 second. It's on sheet A 2.6.
I see, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no additional questions for staff, I'd like to invite Mr. Zorabian back up.
Good evening. Again, my name is Hamlet Zorabian. I'm the project architect. So that was a very nice comprehensive presentation. So we have all the information. I think I just was listening to see what the questions are or concerns are. Maybe I can speak to those and the conditions as well. So as far as the last question that you asked, so we have provided, open space at the roof, but they're private for the top levels. So our penthouse levels, basically, they have an access privately to private decks, which with a view and whatever, there is their amenities. But the common area, for the units will be right in the courtyard, and we provided the contiguous 900 plus, that we have to thereafter. And so that's facing Lexington. So the way the building is designed, it's showing its grace, it shows its landscaping, it shows that it doesn't want to be, just a concrete bunch. So he's having open courtyard, landscape courtyard right in the center and facing Lexington. So that's going to be a very nice addition to me. When people are going to be driving by, they're going to see all this landscaping in the center and some activities on the walkways. So that's basically it. And units are all 3 bedrooms. And this is almost kind of non-existent at this moment for affordable units, because most of the affordable units they're so small and compacted that they're out there. But this particular project is going to be providing 4 very nice 3-bedroom units with amenities for affordable housing. I think this is one of the hottest one. The top units, as we talked about, they have open, area on top, which is much nicer. So each one has a different feature. We're talking about the first floor, they have their own, patios and everything on the deck itself. So the middle units have terraces, and so on and so forth. So as far as the conditions for this, I can just speak to those. Lowering the height of the above ground planter walls. I just want to make sure that we understand that it's clear, in other words, that we're not proposing any planter walls within the setbacks. That's not the case. What we are seeing there, it's the remnants of, the garage itself, because it's sort of, working with the slope of the floor. And so obviously in certain areas, it's coming up, the portion of the garage itself. Plus, then we have planters on top to be able to plant there. So one of the things that we can do to lower it is that we can work with the staff as far as that's concerned. I have no issue with that. In the front of it, we'll go just minimum for shrubs and everything. And then certain areas that is just for the trees, then we have to have by code 30 inches deep soil, which makes it 36-inch planters. So I think by varying the heights of the planters on the deck, we can perhaps, achieve that. So I have no major issue with that. I want to clear up some certain things. The color that we see in the perspective for the wood siding specifically is not the one that we had on our boards. The wood siding there is. It is more like this color, and it didn't do it justice as far as that's concerned. So again, for those kind of things, I think we will work with staff for sure, and to come together with a nice comprehensive material board. As far as the stone tile is concerned, and Mr. Welch cut it very nicely, because here when we are seeing there, it's more of a concrete color, then it's a lighter gray than we're showing there. That meant to show what these are, because these are real stones. These are not tiles. These are basalts and sort of volcanic rocks, and they're very common in modern buildings that we're using. And they have very limited colors. There's one that is a lighter color gray. The other one is more of a darker kind of charcoal gray. So we meant to use the other color, which is lighter color, but it doesn't show it here. So throughout the, all the process and everything, somehow that was lost. And I see a couple of the comments that was made here, comments 6 and 7, for instance. We do have those sheets. If you look at in your packets, the sheets A 6.1, 2, and 3, they're talking about all the details. Details through plaster walls, details through wood siding, and details that is, I'm saying, like window openings and everything. It could be some of them could be conceptual, but obviously in working drawings, when we go into construction documents, we'll kind of tie it down as far as that's concerned. So that we don't have any problem. So I'm okay with that. The thing that I think, one thing that I have, I understand that we want to have the materials all around the building, which is good. I have no problem with that. The thing is that when we're looking at these elevations, the darker shades of black on top, those are the shadows that is casting. That's not obviously the material itself. So it's possible that when you're looking at it with the shadows, it shows a little bit more dense, but it's not like that. It actually, it's a 10-foot floor-to-ceiling height, and we're talking about an 8-foot tall windows there. So you have a portion there that it's above the window itself. What we try to do is to separate the materials from each other as much as we can with some sort of a recess.
Sorry, the nice little ding already hit, so if you could just wrap up your thoughts?
Yes, and
sorry.
so I'll be available for any questions if there needs to be. But yes, I mean, to answer the question, that lines that we see there, they're not just going to be the same level. And we have specially differentiated the penthouse, the top floor, from the rest of them.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Zorabians. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, because I'm still not fully clear on the materials. So the stone tiles that you're talking about, they're the color that we see on the renderings, the lighter gray,
Lighter gray.
what the intent is,
Yes.
not the darker colors.
Yes.
Okay. So what's on the rendering is correct, but not the material board. And
Yes.
the opposite is true on the hardy board. It's going to be the
Opposite is true.
material board, not the rendering.
Yes.
Okay. I'm also confused about the canopies at the top. They're specified in here as matte black, but they certainly aren't matte black on the rendering. So what's correct there?
Well, we like to, because our exterior elevations used to show black, and then once we went into developing this thing further, and we went to color white. But as far as housekeeping is concerned, I think the white will be kind of difficult to maintain. So I will be willing to work with the staff as far as that's concerned to come up with a comprehensive, the final materials that there is, if you would trust us.
Okay. And the raised beds, raised planters there that they're talking about on the Maryland side there. You talked about them being the upper edge of the underground parking structure, but there's at least 42 inches above the first floor level, right? Adjacent to all, because there's no walkway there. It's all right against the building and against the balconies.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to explain, because that doesn't have to be 42. If it's further away and you have an expand of landscape, for instance, then you can actually resolve it by a railing or something on top of the planter way deeper inside. So you won't be able. Yes, yeah. So we are, we're required to have 30 inches deep soil in order for us to put trees there. So if you look at the landscape plans, we have planted some trees there. So some portions of it needs to be that much soil, but the rest of it around it doesn't have to be. So it's for shrubs and everything, we can go minimum. We can go 18 inches or whatever. And so I can adjust that by creating higher and lower, planters on top of the deck. But the deck, I can't do much about it because every construction is like this. This is it's nothing, different than any other construction. And the side slopes in certain areas, they're really minimum, maybe 12 inches. In the front, for instance, you have that. And so obviously we have 20-foot expand of landscaping, facing Lexington, which we can burn. We can do a lot of landscaping features and everything there to soften it up.
I don't think the issue was there. I think it was just on the Maryland side, but okay, very good.
Okay,
Thank you.
anyway, that applies to both sides.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simonian, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have several speaker cards. Vladimir Mondolian. Please come up and introduce yourself.
Good evening, all. I'm Vladimir Mondolian. I'm the owner and the next building, 221 East Lexington Drive. And I'm highly concerned about this project because the first time I heard about this project, I bought my condo 4 years ago. I never thought that I'm going to have something built like this and that's going to completely cover my view. Without this project that's going to be built, our units kind of don't get that much sun, and with this building, it's going to be even darker. Moreover, I'm concerned about privacy and also a lot of traffic going to come in the area. We have limited parking as of now in the area. And I have also a question to the architect on other project that he introduced earlier. He was concerned about the neighbors, but when he was presenting this, he never brought up any neighbors around here, whether this project gonna cover any view or gonna be anyone gonna be opposing this. And I haven't heard also how far this project gonna be away from existing buildings. I haven't heard that one also. Pretty much I'm opposing this project because I don't know the details. I'm okay with the development in the city of Glendale, but I want our concerns to be heard and to be considered. Because new buildings, like, I don't know how many units, it was saying 50, how many units was?
28.
Now ours is 28, so I want our 28 unit owners' concern also to be heard and to be considered, that's all.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mais Caribbean.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I also live in 221 East Lexington, and this project also concerned me. And like Vladimir mentioned, I have the same points, but if you guys can consider the facts that he mentioned, we would really appreciate it. And those are the points that I want to bring it up, that a lot of the views on that side, it's going to be really bad for the people who own units on that side. And we just want to, bring our points, and hopefully you guys can consider this about the owners of 221 East Lexington. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, we have Anne Chulayan.
Hello, board members. I have a petition I want to submit.
If you can, please state your name and...
Anne Chulayan. So, again, like my two neighbors mentioned here, this building being 4 stories tall, being on the next door, pretty much like 8 to 10 feet away from us, is going to completely cover the light coming into the unit on west side of the building, our building. Our building, to explain this a little further, is the building, ours is built in 1974, and it's an open courtyard building. It has 12 units on east side and 12 units on west side. And the units are built so that the light is coming in only for units on the west side. They're coming from west, the windows are on that side, and the units that are on the other side, east side, they're getting the light into the units from that side. Basically, the ones on Louis side are getting the light, and the ones that are on Maryland side are getting the light completely from that side. This building being built on that side of the street is going to completely cover the light coming into our unit. On top of that, there are privacy issues. The windows, looking at windows on the next building, completely are depriving us from privacy. You have to have your shades covered all the time, 24/7. Already there is no light. On top of that, we're gonna have people from the other building constantly, it's just very uncomfortable to even think about it, that somebody can watch you, all your movements in your own homes. Very concerning. Also, of course, there is issue of decrease in property value if we're getting this. The other concern is saturated parking, traffic in the area. All this combined, basically, these are real serious concerns. And we have that lived in this area, in this community for 49 years. It's just, very upsetting to know that this is what's going to happen to us.
Thank you. Sorry that chime was, your time is up, so thank you very much.
Done.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a very quick question.
Yes.
Is your building a condominium building?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next speaker, Marie Kasabian.
She had to leave, she's not.
Oh, okay. She's not here. And do we have any callers?
No callers, no.
No callers. Yes.
Madam Chair, I have a question for staff as we're going through this.
Sure.
So when I'm looking at sheet, let's say,
2.10.
or yeah, 2.10, like the third floor plan, where are the private balconies? I'm trying to understand how the balconies kind of play into the neighboring properties.
I'm looking at sheet A2.4, the third floor plan.
Yeah, you gotta look at a 2.4.
So there are balconies along,
2.4, I see.
Well, that's a setback drawing, that's why.
2.10 was the setback diagram.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
so A2.4 shows the private balconies along, there's two along the easterly facade, and there's a few on the northerly facade, and then a few on the west facade, and then on the corner facing Lexington. That wraps.
Okay. Got it, okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other speakers and no other questions, I'd like to invite Mr. Zorabians back up for his rebuttal period.
All right, thank you. All right, there are a few concerns here which I need to kind of address. Well, first of all, I think overall we have to come to realize that we're not overbuilding by any means. Because right now, if you go with the density bonus, you're entitled to build 50% more rather than 35% what is presented here. Instead of the 2 cars that we have provided for each unit, you're required only to have 1.5 without any guest parking or anything like this. So as far as the setbacks are concerned, we're just talking about on the east side of it, we're averaging 14 feet on that side to the property line, and the existing building to that is about 8 to 10 feet away from it. So if you add them up together, it's at 24 to 26 feet average. So if it was a different scenario, if I would come here and I say, instead of 14 feet, I'm applying for a reduction on my minimum setbacks. Just give me 5 feet. Then, the panel can say, well, we're concerned about it because there is a next door project that is close to you. So 5 we cannot give you. You got to stick to 10 feet or 12 feet. Right now here, this is a very simple, nice project as far as that is concerned. We are not asking for any reduction in the setbacks. In fact, number 2, the project that was built at that year and is next to us on the east side is not 3 stories. It's a 3 stories above a semi-subterranean garage. And I know what that means. That means it's a 3.5 stories. If you look at the picture and you go to Google it and you can take a look at it, it's almost the same height as the new proposed building. You had a picture here, and you could see it. So we're not talking about something that is exorbitant, with, design that has a maximum size. No, this could have been. If today I don't build this thing, another developer is going to come and he's going to request for 50% more, and he's going to go much more than this thing. And he will get it because it's a state law. But the thing is that we have been doing this thing moderately, very nicely, good amount of landscaping, something that the neighborhood can be proud of. And the units itself, I told you from beginning, we are offering 4 3-bedroom units to affordable housing. That's a big item there, right there. As far as light is concerned, these properties are all zoned 1250. Someone who's selling the property to some person, they should also tell them that in the future, this building that you see here is a 1-story. Someone is going to come because the prices are going up. Someone is going to develop something here. What they can develop, this is the question. When you're buying something, you need to ask what someone can build next door. If this doesn't build, another building is going to build. This whole area here is next to downtown, and it's zoned for high density. That means up to 4 stories you can go up with certain circumstances, right? So this is something that is not, deviously done. This is not inconsiderate. I mean, here, of course, we, consider the neighborhood. Why did I consider the neighborhood? I could have gone and provided just 1.5 parking spaces for a unit. We didn't do that. We said the traffic in Glendale is no good. So let's do that. Let's give at least 2 parking spaces for every one of them, so we don't have people parking outside. So that's what everything is already in the project. Less grading, just a 1-level grading that we went down with the parking. And I can tell you, there's so many features here that is modernizing the building itself. It's just answering the green requirements and so on and so forth. I don't see anything wrong with the building, obviously, and I'm the architect because I'm proud of it. If I design something, I want to be proud of it. I'm very careful in designing this thing. I always consider the neighbors. And so that's what it is. And the distance was important, I think, because one of the neighbors asked for how much it is. I don't think it's 8 feet. It's 14 feet in our property, plus the 8 feet or 10 feet that they have, that they should have had with the code. And you know what? I tell you what, if I go, they don't even have the parking enough for the parking for that building, because that building was built a long time ago. If you ask them, there is no 2 parking for each unit necessarily. They have mix of bedrooms and everything. So they not necessarily have 2 parking spaces. And we are close to the mass transportation. That's another impact on the traffic, that it kind of helps it. So what I'm saying is, if you consider all these details and everything, I think we've been very considerate to the neighborhood. We cannot go three stories. This project would not even go there with the 3 stories. It's impossible. So this is what 2 cents I have, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Simonian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Zarabians, for going through that. Just like the previous project, where I was trying to ask some questions to get a sense for some solutions that might be a win-win. And thank you also for really pointing out the additional parking that you're providing on top of the density bonus requirements. I think that is commendable, especially because the office building across the street at 450 North Brand has a 24-hour gym there, and so that parking is definitely impacted in that area. And so you're going beyond that, which is very expensive, and that's commendable. Plus, you're keeping the density below allowable. And as you said, the interior setbacks are in addition to the minimums. And so all this is beyond kind of the state density bonus laws that provide the developer that by right. And so I think we all realize that and we get that. One solution to some of the thoughts that staff had, and maybe the concerns of the eastern property may be, just as a consideration, is if we look at, let's say, sheet 2.4, the floor plan, You know, we have this beautiful courtyard, and the units on the west side off of Maryland have their balconies facing the street, which is quite nice. But on the east side, where you would kind of maybe point out, if one could say, if you're the neighbor on the east side, you know, there's no street, so there's no relief. There are two balconies there, and I'm wondering, at least on the corner unit, which is 307, if that balcony moved from the east setback to the front setback, and what that would do is allow you to have greater articulation in the facade. We could, on the fourth floor, provide that relief that staff is talking about, in doing that kind of differentiation of the cornice line at the corners, because there'll be a balcony there. And in so doing, you know, you're not facing a balcony onto the neighbors to the east. So that would alleviate a lot of privacy issues on that. And then, but there isn't much that could be done on the middle unit, which is 306, because that's, it is. But at least on 307, you could do that and as a thought. And I just wanted to get your opinion on this, because you're beyond the setback. So we're just kind of talking beyond the setback areas. Also, when we're looking at the building elevations, the east elevation, which is facing the building to the east, the balconies have glass railings, which are, of course, very nice. They're very expensive. They're of high caliber. But if you actually have, you know, non-window or non-glass railings, in essence, it's not as intrusive, because they won't see into your property, you won't see into them, or if someone's sitting out there, they're not worrying about, you know, it being reflective. So it's a consideration. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. If so, and again, the glass is much more of an expensive material to put in. You've kind of gone beyond expectations, but it's a thought. And so those were just some things I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, based on the amount of people that are sitting here. But it's important, I think, to point out that he's way beyond the setback, you know. And but those were some things I wanted to get your thoughts on before we get to the deliberation part.
Okay. I mean, I'll be open to that suggestion. The reason that we use glass here is to kind of introduce different heights to the building, where certain elements are coming together, and the glass being invisible, it just gives that notion of, you know, some portion of it is higher, some portion of it is lower, not to have just a flat roof there. And when we are looking at, obviously, as you know, the elevations that are, when it's modern building or contemporary, it's kind of difficult to see this plays and everything in a two-dimensional. Right. But when you're going to the 3D, it's much easier to see what we're talking about. That's the only intention. If you feel that, you know, we can do that, we can go back and do railings there. Being downtown, being you know, modern kind of, you know, we wanted to do it this way, but I'll be open to that. If you want to put a maybe consideration or something, then we can think about it.
It's a discussion. So I'm saying, just on the east side, in a way, it would really, I think, alleviate some of their concerns, the neighborly concerns.
And I have no problem with the suggestion as far as moving that one balcony at least, because that's going to be four balconies that's going to come to the front.
Right, and so 4 balconies will be relocated that are facing your building to the front. And
we can do that. I mean, I'm okay with that. I can make that adjustment.
Those were my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I had a couple of follow-up questions. First, just as Mr. Simonian was pointing it out, I realized that there's actually 3 balconies that I see on that east elevation. So it looks like there's 2 wider ones and then a narrower one that maybe fronts onto the bedrooms there. So just wanted to point that out. That's, you know, we might want to get clarification on that one.
Yes.
But my real question was about staff's condition. I don't think I heard you address it, unless I missed it, and I apologize. But they talked about incorporating some kind of a base at the building, all throughout the street-facing facade. So what are your thoughts on that?
This was a discussion that we had through the development with the staff. The base, to me, we already have a strong base with the top of the planter that there is. But I think the base that, I had talked to staff and they clarified it, it was nothing to do with the mass or anything like this, but they feel that if I can differentiate the first floor with a horizontal line on top of that, it can further separate and, kind of create this horizontality rather than being vertical. Being in the downtown, in that area there, I think it's nice to have, the vertical aspect of it, because, I could go either way, tell you the truth. I cannot say no, but if I introduce another base there, so some of the base, when they come in, they're going to sit on this thing, they're going to continue themselves going there. I'm not sure if that is something that I like to see, but if that would be the condition or if something that we need to do, and I'm willing to discuss it with the staff and see what we can do into that respect. As far as lights are concerned, because, Mr. Welch, by the way, is that these canopies and everything that we are introducing, it provides for that lighting to be recessed and not to have, kind of avoids putting a wall light everywhere. So our intention was like that. One of the also conditions was to show downspots, if you remember. That I didn't address as well. We completely wanted to eliminate downspots. We just don't like downspots. It's very hideous. Contractors don't build it the way it's supposed to be, and it turns out it's a very turnoff to me. So some of the buildings that they have already built and I designed, and every time I drive by and I see all these things, it's really bad. We don't want to provide any downspouts. It's going to be basically an overflow drain with a scupper. That's the most we're going to see. The drainage will be within the building itself, so we don't have that. And that's how I addressed it.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zarabian.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I think we will go ahead and close the public hearing and open for deliberations. Mr. Welch?
Guess it's my turn again?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, staff, thank you, Mr. Zarabians, thank you to the public coming out and spending your time here. We do appreciate hearing from you. These kinds of density bonus projects are always a challenge because we are kind of constricted. The state does not give us the flexibility or the leeway to say, oh, chop that third floor, the fourth floor off, or shrink it down. Our hands are tied. So the most that we can do is make some recommendations for things like what we've talked about here. Some modifications that can help with the privacy issues, and to talk about the design, how it's going to impact the environment here for pedestrians, for neighbors, et cetera. So for my perspective, I think that the discussions that we've had about trying to modulate some of the balconies is appropriate and correct. I think, in fact, if I was hearing you correctly, you were recommending that maybe we make them solid rails on the sides facing the adjacent properties, rather than any kind of railings or glass, so to provide more privacy all around, frankly, even for the residents of this building. Because I understand the glass on the street-facing sides, but when you're only 20 feet away from a nearby neighbor, the view is not the same. It's not the same street-facing presence, and privacy is definitely much more of a consideration on those facades that are within those portions of the building. So I think that would be worthy of some consideration. I'm curious to hear what other people think. From the design of the building, I think that I understand what staff is talking about in terms of a base, a middle, a top, in terms of a design. I think the building largely does that with the planter walls. I think that certainly some articulation of those planter walls would be beneficial, especially from a pedestrian's perspective. To see a straight line, solid level wall, I think is a little much. I think having some variety to the heights, maybe a little bit of, you probably can't do any setback there because of the podium, but you could still vary some of the heights and do some changes there that will help. And I think the area of the top, that pedestal sort of part at the top there, I think I kind of would have preferred the darker gray, the basalt, you know. I think that it's just a little blends too much and doesn't bring about enough contrast. So for me, I would prefer to see more of that, to see the material board color actually used instead of the rendering one. Similarly with the roof canopy there, those, you know, again, they just sort of all blend in, and it's all very white and you know, not as interesting as I would like to see. So I would like to hear from my fellow board members what they think about that. Again, I don't want to design your project. I'm just, you know, expressing some of my feedback on how I'm viewing it and where I think we could potentially help improve the project. Aside from that, again, I think that you are correct. You could have done more. You could have made it more intense. You could have done less parking. It would have been nice to squeeze in some guest parking spaces if possible, but, you know, that's, again, not something that I have any purview over. So aside from that, I think that, you know, the design is well. It works well. I mean, it's in scale of the neighborhood, all things considered. And I appreciate the fact that you've done a lot of articulation here and you've spent some time and really given some thought to it. So I just, you know, I hope we can work together collectively to help improve the project. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Mr. Simonian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Zarabias, for kind of going through that Q&A with us earlier. I think it really helps us understand the project, and at the same time, it helps the neighbors as well kind of understand the complexities of these things. You know, and it's kind of interesting because, you know, you all took the time to come here and talk about it. And, you know, your building was designed in 1974, and, you know, the applicant is replacing with the state density bonus laws, you know, these homes that were designed in 1920. And so if you imagine, you know, 54 years had gone by since those houses were built, and then your property was built as apartments. And I would imagine the homes that are being demolished now didn't like the apartment next door because those environments were looking into their backyards. And so if we fast forward to 2083, your property might be getting developed into a 12-story building. And these residents are going to come out and say, hold on, we have a property being built next to us. Look, we're in an infill area. We're close to downtown. There's a housing shortage. The state is trying desperately to provide housing. I'm an immigrant. I moved here from another country. There's a lot of people moving here. We need housing. It's going to grow. California is going to grow. It's inevitable. And so the question is to, you know, design buildings that are done responsibly. And I believe this building has been designed responsibly, and it's designed quite well. And they're providing more parking than they need to. And that's the important thing, I think, is what you need to understand, because they, I think it's a 28-unit project.
Right.
And
They were allowed 30.
they, yeah, I think, is that the number, 30? But
Yeah.
based on number of, because it's, well, it's half per unit. So no, it's every unit half. So they could have provided 14, I think, parking per state density bonus. That would have been all they would have had to provide. But besides that, they're providing how many, I think?
Well, they're providing 56, but based on density bonus law, they would be allowed with the parking concessions they'd be required 42.
Is there not within a
parking
half a
spaces.
mile of a major transit stop?
Correct. So in this case, it was one on-site parking space for one-bedroom units and then 1.5.
Major transit stop.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So I stand correct. They could have only provided 42, but they're providing 56. And so that's a benefit as well. And they could have provided more units, such as 33, but they're providing 28. So there's a lot of compromises that are being done here, and that's why I think it's being done responsibly. Some of the suggestions that staff made that we echoed, such as relocating, I think just those 307 unit balconies to the front, I think would, fulfill two goals. One would be if we're looking at the facade, if we put up the front facade of the building on Lexington, staff was mentioning, the differentiation of the cornice line, let's say at the top right. Well, if everything on the right side, and that's the Lexington elevation, correct?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay, or actually, the rendering would be better. The rendering, actually, Ms. Lita, the rendering
Okay,
would be
I'll
better.
go to the rendering, but just for the record, this is the south facade, or south elevation is the front facade facing Lexington, but let's go to the rendering.
And so if the balconies were relocated to the corner there, as where the mouse is, not only would it provide the opportunity to have that stone more prevalent, but at the same time, it almost would provide a differentiation of the base as well, because then you would have a balcony, and it says you're providing a differentiation at the corner, and so we're fulfilling kind of different goals at the same time. So I do think that's a good idea. And the railings, if as a consideration, I think if you would consider that, I think that since it's beyond the setback, I don't really want to dwell on it too much, but I think at the end you may decide to do that anyways, because it might be a good thing for yours tenants as well. And I think those just minor changes will have a huge impact on the building to the east as far as privacy is concerned. And so I support the project. I think it's well thought out. And I think, staff has made some really good comments as to how it could be improved. That's gotten us to echo them and to kind of, discuss further. And that's what this process is all about. And so I do support the project with those conditions. And we could also discuss some other items as well as come up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Simonian. So I agree with my fellow board members, and I also am in support of the project, and I won't reiterate everything that was said, but I'm sure hopefully the neighbors could understand that our hands are tied, as Mr. Welsh said, with projects of this nature. And really, I do appreciate Mr. Zarabians did go ahead and take your building into consideration by providing more of a setback than he had to. We've had a lot of projects come to our board where it's only been 6 feet away from the property line. So, and there have been buildings right there. So I think he was respectful of that and did a nice job in laying it out and designing the building that we see in front of us. So I agree with Mr. Welsh in terms of the material board. I also like what is shown on the material board versus what's shown in the renderings, with the darker tile stone and the darker siding. I agree with the compromises that were mentioned about the balconies. I think that's a nice compromise that hopefully the neighbors could appreciate when it comes down to privacy. The base comment of the conditions, I wasn't fully, I don't know, in favor of really. I think the design is nice as it is, with the planter wall being sort of that differentiator, and there's a lot of undulation with the building and change in materials that I think it's working nicely. And so I don't know if we need to reiterate what the conditions are, because some of them changed, like the gutters were one of them, and Mr. Zarabian's clarified that they would be integrated into the building, so they won't be visible. And I think that's the extent of my thoughts. So if staff could maybe go back down through the conditions, or...
Yes, and I will do my best to, I think I caught the latest comments, but we certainly have to go over and make sure I could address some of the revisions that are being suggested. So instead of condition number 1 about lowering the height of the above ground planter wall, that would actually be one condition that would be modified to more like articulate it as opposed to lowering it.
Vary the height.
Varying height, correct. So I did get that. I just didn't write it here. The other one, we're going to strike number 2 because it's clear that applicant's proposing the drainage system to be internal. We'll keep number 3. That's more of a zoning item, but I thought because it ties in with landscaping, doesn't hurt. Number 4, we're going to strike A, which is the one about introducing a base. Okay. So we're all in agreement with that. What did the board think about the horizontal siding? I got the point about using the material board as presented as opposed to the renderings, like the stone, we want the darker, and then we want the board would like to see the darker siding. Again, the material board is what we want the applicant to use as a guide and propose as opposed to the colors shown on the renderings.
Because that siding material color that Mr. Zoriaban's indicated or showed, illustrated, was very different than the rendering, which is quite nice.
Right.
Okay.
So I think just to clarify, when you came up with this condition where it says alternatively, if horizontal siding as the preferred material, consider using a different siding color, were you referencing the rendering?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think we're in agreement then that the
In
material.
an endless stream of white stucco and brown fake wood siding these
Right.
days, so.
So then why don't we keep the part B, if you will, of that condition?
And just make a reference to the material board.
Right,
you know,
and
that
then
we-
we'll use the material board color.
Well, I think we'll just strike B completely
Okay.
and just add a condition about the material board.
Yes, that's a good point. Thank you. Again, addressing the stone and then the siding. And item C, not sure how.
I think
think
for
we're
item
striking.
I think
C, if we strike it,
Right,
because if we're
because
using,
it's taken care of by B.
yeah, that'll
yeah.
give you that.
Okay, so we'll get rid
juxtaposition.
of that. And item 5, I think that's pretty general, it seems to be okay. Item 6, we could still keep it if you're okay with that, just to make it clear when they submit for plan check. I understand he mentioned that it's on one of the details.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the stucco to tile detail.
Okay. So it's pretty clear, it's not a generic, okay.
So we're
Then,
going to
I don't
strike
know.
that? Okay.
It sounds like we're striking it.
Yeah.
And number 7,
I think similar, I think there were
Yes.
details for
Yeah.
that, so.
but I'd like to, if the board is okay with the second half of that condition about submitting a window schedule consistent with the city's handout, we typically do ask for that. So if we could just, if the board's okay with that, can we keep that language in there?
Okay.
And that would help remind the applicant and myself to look at that during plan check.
We should probably change the brick clad, though, to the veneer, the stone veneer clad, because I think that's what you're
Yes.
referencing, right? So.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, I thought, weren't you saying strike the first part of that, Milka?
Yeah, we are striking the
And
first part.
submit a window schedule consistent
Oh, I see,
with
okay,
the
all
city.
right, okay.
It should be a
Exact-
general condition that's part of all applications, but.
Right.
We do have some additional comments that the board had about relocating I want to say it's for unit number 307, the balcony.
would be all
The
three
7 series, yes.
series,
Stacked
right?
balconies, okay, along that corner units to the front, facing Lexington. And then use a solid railing as opposed to clear glass for the balconies along the east facade.
And the north, I think.
And the north as well?
Would probably be appropriate too, since there's a building adjacent there too. We haven't had any people from there, but I think the situation would be the same, so
Okay,
Applicable.
still applicable.
but it's the front on the street facing facades, we're okay with keeping the clear? There's no
Yes.
concern that it would be different in terms of,
Correct.
be kind of interesting.
You can't.
No, cross-communication,
I was kind of bringing
Mr.
up the
Draven.
condition. I am absolutely open to the architect working this out with staff. In fact, went so far as saying maybe it should be somewhat of a consideration. So whatever the architect thinks is appropriate to minimize what we've been talking about on just the east and north side. And it's all right if it's different than the street side, because in essence, the street side's so prevalent, and it'd be nice to have some glass there because it's of high
Agreed.
caliber, and it would be very nice that he's doing that.
So consider?
I think
I'm okay with the consideration. I don't.
I think a
Did you wanna-
condition is
A
more
condition,
appropriate, but we
okay.
word it in such a way that the applicant
Has some
works with staff.
flexibility and work with staff.
Because if the goal was to help the neighbors feel a sense of more privacy, I think a more solid railing
Yes.
is a good way to do that. But we could allow some more design flexibility, maybe allow a
And
panel
we won't
to
dictate.
just break it up a little, is that? So
Right.
we'll
Basically,
work
the
on that.
idea is just provide a little bit more privacy and screening
The
there.
goal
so-
is for privacy.
Right.
However,
'Cause they have the
so a
purple-
translucent material might work that allows light to come in, but gives
Maybe,
privacy. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let,
We'll work with
yes, the
Mr.
architect
with the
have,
applicant.
yes,
Okay.
design
Sounds
flexibility.
good. That's the extent of the comments that we're going to include based on what the direction the board has given us. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the project with the conditions as stated.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, this motion to approve, Board Member Simonian,
Yes.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
and Madam Chair Chagayan.
Yes,
Motion carries 3-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Do we have a motion to
Is there any
adjourn?
more business?
Motion
Do we have
to
nothing
adjourn.
else to add?
But
The
obviously,
minutes for the March
the minutes,
9th?
we don't
No?
need,
Okay.
we don't need to do the
Yeah,
minutes.
Mr. Kaskanian
And
didn't.
just, obviously, Ms. Milka Toledo, our senior planner, who will be one of the 2 new Design Review Board liaisons, is
Okay.
making her debut. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, we're still having a hearing, so apologies if you can
You guys could
take
go
it
outside.
You can take it outside.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
So-
patient with me.
Thank you, and thank you all for your patience, because clearly this is our first Design Review Board in our old hearing room, so.
Yes.
Well, I
And
know we're in good hands. I know we're in very good hands. So we look forward to working with you, Ms. Toledo, and Mr. Mattias. It's been such a pleasure to work with you over the last 10, 15
I'm not leaving you
years.
yet, so. I'm not leaving you.
I can't tell you how many late nights we've had, right, where you've
Yeah.
just dealt with everything. And the COVID times were the toughest because everything was being done remotely.
Oh.
And you were handling the phone calls and everything, and you've always been there. So I think that's just wonderful, and thank you for all the collaboration over the years.
Well, thank you, thank you. I mean, it's the board, I could say the same about you. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we will continue working together. I am not leaving, so it's
Is this
just,
your last night doing this?
no,
No.
probably
one
not.
more.
This is her second. It's like the
This is
reports of my passing are premature.
Never-ending
Be more of a
goodbyes
grand
that just
statement next
continue,
time.
continue,
Yeah,
and
you guys can
continue.
work and build up.
No,
Or something.
we will. And just
We
to let
will.
everyone know that Mr. Welch will be overseas for the month of June, so we
Correct,
wish
so
him
I
a
will not be
wonderful
here for the-
trip, and We want to make sure we keep a quorum
wanna
for the
call
other
in?
meetings in June, so. Oh, and by the way, the next meeting on May the 25th is canceled.
Oh,
So
good.
enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, your longer Memorial Day weekend, and we will see the rest of the board in
did not
June.
know
In
that.
June.
In June.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right?
thank you. Do
Thank
we have
you.
To adjourn.
And now is our motion.
To adjourn,
All in
okay.
favor?
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I made plans for the 25th.